the price of Bitcoin basically crashed. It had quintupled in price over the past 30 days on an exchange called Mt. Gox. It's MT.Gox. Went from 265 earlier today. That's, a conversion to US dollars, to 150. So a huge drop. Another exchange called TradeHill said the reason that the currency is falling is because they're experiencing a DDoS attack. And basically a bunch of people are trying to bring down Mt. Gox and then have a bunch of people freak out, the price plummets, and then you can buy a bunch of Bitcoin. So it's basically gaming the system in a way. Mt. Gox said on a Facebook page, no, it wasn't an attack. What it was too much interest in Bitcoin, and our infrastructure just needs to grow to be able to handle it. They said volume of new users caused a lag, people panicked, and that's why they sold off the currency, and that's why we saw a price drop. Specifically, Mt. Gox says 60,000 new accounts were opened in the first few days of April. You compare that to the entire month of March, which was 75,000 accounts, and I say, listen, at this rate, 20,000 accounts being added every day, we need to take our servers offline and maybe add a couple new servers to make sure that we're growing with the demand. Some people are calling BS on that whole thing, saying that it shouldn't be that hard. This is just, you're trying to sweep under the rug the fact that there are denial of service attacks that make the whole Bitcoin idea really unstable. Tom, I know you've got some Bitcoins. You've been following their rise and fall in the marketplace. What do you make of what's going on here?
Yeah, I got a bunch back in February 2011. It wasn't when it launched, but it was like first kind of erupting into the tech space's consciousness. A nice listener that I cannot remember gave me a bunch at the time when they were worth virtually nothing. And I also got a couple for like downloading a program, doing anything like that. So I've been tracking this lately. When I started paying attention again to Mt. Gox, I think they were worth about $60 a piece. And then they went up above 100, and then they were up 180. And I saw this story, and I'm not checking in constantly, and I actually don't keep the Bitcoins in Mt. Gox either. And I saw this story that it had burst, and I went back and I looked, and it was still at 180. So I think what happened is, essentially, it had a big bubble that burst really quickly. And that makes sense. You're in the very early days of a type of currency that I don't think anybody can really properly define yet, but seems to be getting traction. And during that early part, it's going to get tested to see if it can actually withstand things. And this seems to be normal activity. If it went up too fast, then that should pop and it should bring it back down. The fact that it's still, it's back up to around $180 to me is kind of surprising.
Well, then again, Mt. Gox this morning was not letting me trade even if I wanted to buy Bitcoins because the whole thing was so volatile. So, Lindsay, when you come across this whole Bitcoin idea is unregulated and that scares a lot of people. Is it going to, just because this is the way economics work, end up falling into the same patterns as traditional markets?
I would assume so. The interesting thing about this is that even if they're adding, 200,000 investors a month or more. That's not very many people if you compare it to the number of people trading on even a small exchange in a small country. So I would assume that over time, as people buy Bitcoin, if that continues, then things will level off, and there will be ups and downs, but not bubbles that can grow and burst within the space of a week, which is kind of what's going on here. And it's a little bit strange. I don't quite buy that we're adding that many users so fast, because I assume that they employ people who have worked in the financial sector before, and those people are pretty careful about designing systems. My husband used to work on those systems, and there are a lot of best practices that prevent against that kind of thing. But it'll be really interesting to watch. I actually wonder if this supposed collapse of Bitcoin is the best advertising because people will pay attention to it all of a sudden.
What do you think?
It's an interesting idea of looking at currency fluctuations. When you're thinking about different countries and their currency fluctuating based on stability of government or other economic downturns that will determine what that value is. In this case, it's if these places can stay online. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a denial of service attack or it's a denial of service because they're just being hit by too much traffic, the result is the same. The infrastructure is getting hit, kind of like a government. So it's just to even put this together in this modern world to see internet currency working this way, that's intriguing to me. But this is currency. Currency fluctuates. So the fact that it's fluctuating so wildly has people freaked out. But it's very similar to a currency that would be in a nation that's not exactly stable yet.
The worst thing for a currency would be not to be used, not to be speculated upon, not to be traded. So I actually am a little shocked that 2 years down the road, we're still talking about Bitcoin and its usage is increasing. I think it's something very curious to watch. I'm still not convinced that it's going to catch on. Certainly, I'm not convinced at all that it's going to replace any global currency like the euro or the dollar, but it's got a lot more traction than I might have expected.
Well, we need more places to accept Bitcoins, I think that's the major issue, right? Someone in chat was like, well, what can you buy with Bitcoins? Well, not enough, or else it would be actually a more viable unit of currency.
Right now, it actually seems like some sort of strange mutual fund. It's just an investment vehicle because you can't spend it, right? So you can invest in it, but it's all based on market speculation, unless you have a reason to use Bitcoin all the time, which most people don't.
Yeah, there's Silk Road, which is controversial. That takes it. WordPress takes it. Reddit takes it. It's limited, the number of places that take it. But the fact, again, I go back to the fact that anybody is taking it at all, I find very intriguing, very interesting.
I feel like Bitcoin will find some sort of niche or something. There'll be some specialized use for it over time, and then that may be what causes it to become widely acceptable.
And apparently, I didn't realize this, but Jared's telling me we take it as a donation currency here at Twitch, so there you go. Let's talk about something that is probably as real as Bitcoin. Microsoft's next Xbox. Yeah, what's the rumor about that?
Okay, the Verge reporting that the next Xbox will control your cable box. Now they're citing multiple unnamed sources, and they're saying the next Xbox will have an HDMI pass-through similar to Google TV, and that's going to allow Microsoft to place an overlay UI on top of existing TV channels. And this is apparently supposed to be a key part of the next generation Xbox, whatever that means. Since Microsoft has partnerships with a lot of content partners, content providers that is, the Xbox will be able to go much further than Google TV was able to. And there's some more info on the Xbox. It requires an always-on connection when you want to use these entertainment services, and the next generation Connect apparently will also play a role in how you watch TV. The next Connect will actually detect multiple people and their eyes and will pause content when a viewer turns their head away from their TV, kind of like the Samsung Galaxy S4. Lindsay, do you think this whole cable box HDMI thing is going to be a selling point for the Xbox?
I think it depends on how they handle what the feature set that goes along with that is. It's very important to Xbox, certainly. We know that now, I think, the last time I heard the statistic, more than half of Xbox usage is now as a set-top box. It's entertainment rather than gaming. So Xbox is really well positioned to become the central box for your living room, and it already is for a whole bunch of people. So it makes a lot of sense. If there's some really interesting implementation of that interaction or the overlay with your cable, maybe some social elements where you're watching with friends, that doesn't seem compelling enough to me, though. So maybe my imagination is not able to predict what they're going to do with it. I can't think of a really compelling use for that yet, but we'll see. I mean, Xbox has really been working hard on those content partnerships. They've been going out and working with a lot of different entertainment houses to make sure that they have really great titles available on Xbox. So maybe there's some special use there that we don't know about yet.
Tom, do you think Microsoft can out Google TV? Google?
Well, that wouldn't be very hard right now, would it? There's not much of a Google TV user base out there, but I think they're definitely trying. And their leg up on Google is that they have the cooperation of cable companies in this, so they can integrate with those boxes and they can provide a different interface. And when you get to that interface, I'm like Lindsay, I'm not sure. I'm a little curious what it's going to look like. Now, granted, Xbox has done some excellent interface work stuff, so let's not just bash Microsoft because they don't always do great interfaces. The Xbox 360 television interface is actually really good. I think they've done some great work and they've improved it over time. So maybe if they actually take over the interface from the cable companies, which don't have a reputation for very good interfaces at all, this could be a big improvement in how I find shows, where I find shows. I can get that ability to just say, I want to watch this show, and Xbox can tell me, oh, it's on Netflix, it's on Hulu, it's live, it's on demand from your cable provider, it's on HBO Go, all those different places there. That could be pretty interesting. I'm a little skeptical that because they have to integrate with my cable box, that it's going to be as smooth, that they're going to be allowed to do it as smoothly as they should to help the user, because there's so many entertainment industry interests that get in the way of that.
They're already making the Kinect's going to start watching you. If you turn your head, they're going to pause the content for you.
It's funny. That's exactly what I'm a little bit hung up on. I don't know what my problem is when it comes to, like, tracking my eyes and blinking and being able to control interface via the camera and visuals. However, the Kinect in general, when it works really, really well. At least with my limited testing of the system. So I kind of see this and I go, no, you turn your head away. You don't necessarily want it to pause because the system isn't smart enough to know why you might have done that. So maybe you're looking away because it's like a violent scene in a show, or there could be all sorts of reasons. You're talking to your friend. I'm not really sure, but even though I think it sounds clunky, it's also kind of exciting. I hope that they are going to try this, and I hope there is a lot more experimentation as far as making your cable interface better, because right now none of them are very good.
If Microsoft Connect can watch you and then give metrics back to those content partners to say, hey, look, your ads are working, people are watching your ads, that could be really interesting for them, so they can actually get more and more content providers to be on board. And as for the pass-through concept, I'm thinking if you like...
Watch out. Accident reported ahead.
Aiming. The thing about the Xbox, the next one, because of a processor shift, at least that's widely rumored, it shouldn't be able to support the 360 games. So if you have a 360, I would think you'd be able to plug it into your new Xbox, and they would all kind of work together, so you don't really lose anything. Might be a little added bonus for people to go, oh yeah, if you still want to use your...
Watch out. Object on road ahead.
Well, Xbox 360, you can. You just have to run it through this device as well.
You can have a giant stack of Xboxes in your media console, right? You can have... Well, there are also rumors that there could be a small Xbox and a big Xbox, right? The big gaming Xbox and then a mini one that basically competes with Roku and has all of that set-top functionality, and then possibly, I think you're right, Tom, if they can get show search down and make good product recommendations, or good show recommendations, they'll be golden.
Yeah, I was listening to Paul Thrun on What the Tech, and he was talking about the dual Xbox situation. Apparently, the Xbox 360 is going to be $99, and that's going to be the Roku competitor because that thing's staying around, and they're not going to have two next-gen Xboxes. It's going to be one old-gen refresh and one new one, and that I think would really be serious trouble for something like Roku.
360 in the bedroom, all that kind of thing. That's interesting. Very interesting. All right, we got to take a quick break and thank our other sponsor. Leo Laporte's going to pop in and tell you about it.
Hey, have you tried Hulu Plus yet? Oh, I love Hulu Plus. It's a way you can, it's good, it's great for cord cutters, but even for people, in fact, somebody in the chat was saying, I just use it as my DVR of your current hit TV shows, your classic series, great movies, and it's on almost everything. It's on, of course, many smart TVs, but also Blu-ray players, gaming consoles, PS3.
At least in certain quarters. And I think what a lot of people want to know is, okay, what is this? It's not as objectionable as SOPA, at least to some people. The internet world is split. There are a lot of tech companies who support CISPA. Significantly, Microsoft and Facebook opposed CISPA, but Google's been on the fence. In fact, Alexis Ohanian from Reddit called Larry Page. I think he had to leave a message, but he was asking Google to please come out in opposition of CISPA. Now, what it wants to do is make it easier for private companies to share information with the government when combating cyber criminals. And on the face of it, most people say that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of liability involved with sharing information that should be allowed. You should be protected if you're only using it to get the bad guys. But that's where this becomes a problem. How do we make sure that the government uses this only to go after criminals and not to spy on people or use the NSA as a blanket for just doing whatever they want with the data? They've added a couple of amendments. One amendment requires the government to remove personal info from cyber threat data. That means the government gets the data, then removes the personal info. There was another amendment that required the private companies to remove it before they sent it to the government. That amendment got denied. Another provision removed some vague language that allowed for a broad use of data for national security purposes, so they tightened up the definition a little bit. There were other amendments that did not pass, though. One would have specifically excluded the Defense Department and the NSA. That did not get added. Another would create a supervisory post to oversee this and make sure that the data was handled properly. That did not get added. As we mentioned, the Newsfeed House takes it up next week. We don't know what the White House is going to do this time around. They haven't said. In fact, they haven't even responded to the anti-CISPA petition, which got 100,000 signatures at whitehouse.gov. If you had to handicap this, Lindsay, what do you think when it heads to the House floor next week? Where do you think this is headed?
I feel like, I am no policy expert, but I feel that it will probably pass. And this is the kind of thing that I don't feel like Congress has shown a lot of interest, I guess, in protecting privacy as it pertains to the internet, partially because of, the series of tubes attitude, right? There's still a lot of lack of understanding about what could happen, what the potential privacy concerns are. That's just a gut feeling, though.
And the problem is with info sharing. How likely is it? I mean, we've seen that the committee, the Intelligence Committee, behind closed doors, by the way, so it's actually a little hard to figure out exactly what got added and what got changed yet. But they haven't quieted all of the objections to this. Do you think they can craft a bill that does that? Is that even possible?
I don't think it's possible with any bill, quite honestly. Bills, when you draft them and you revise them, no matter how well you have your intentions, no matter how well you've carefully chosen your words, there's always some kind of gaming of the system, and that's why the courts are the backstop when it comes to this. So as much as this should be paid attention to, and as the revisions and amendments come through, there's always going to be opposition to everything, and there's always going to be loopholes to something, because somebody's going to outthink the text. It just usually happens. So I'm just thinking that we should be paying attention to this, and hopefully the concerns will be allayed because people will bring this up, and there'll be comments publicly all the time.
The cat signal has already gone out. That was created after SOPA last time, but you don't have Google behind it. You don't have the big guns behind it like you did in anti-SOPA. Sarah, do you think that the outrage will rise to that level?
Well, I hate to think that this is one of those situations where everyone remembers SOPA and everybody changed their avatars, and there was really good outreach and then subsequently outrage about the whole thing, and that you just can't rally the troops again so soon afterwards for for what many people have a hard time understanding. What goes on in government and all this stuff, and it's the House and it's a bill, and is the White House going to veto this? This is a lot of stuff that these are details that they can be hard for people to wrap their heads around. Maybe I watch too much House of Cards these days, but I look at this and I'm really pessimistic that the right things, are passing for the right reasons. And yeah, this is the sort of thing that, like Lindsay said, it might pass just because it's kind of like an apathetic attitude, at least on the part of, I don't know, a company like Google. Seems like it's like a part-time business of Google's to make sure that they're really involved in things like this and take a really, really strong stance for reasons that not only help Google, but their whole philosophy. And the fact that they haven't gotten involved yet kind of speaks volumes to me.
SISPA failed last time for two reasons. One, it was in the wake of SOPA, so there was still a lot of anger towards regulation of the internet simmering, and the White House came out and said, we will veto this if you pass it. That essentially killed it in the Senate. We don't know what the White House is going to do yet. That's going to make a big difference, and we don't know what Google's going to do. I think that also is going to make a big difference here, so we'll keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, in a more lighthearted piece of news, we've seen some more leaked screenshots of Babel. What is Babel, Ayaz?
Google Babel is supposed to be this one unified messaging service that takes over all of the, or will get rid of all the other Google Talk Messenger and every other thing that they have, Hangouts. Tech Radar grabbed some screenshots of Google Babel. They're saying their source is new, but the source claims he or she works for Google, so you take this with a grain of salt. These are literally pictures of the screen. Somebody took a camera and took pictures of the screen. And it's pretty much a flat Google design. Instead of text, you have boxes around your conversation, kind of like chat bubbles. The service itself. Now, Droid Life got a bunch of details. They claim they got their hands on a Google memo, and it's saying that Babel would actually combine Google Talk, Hangouts, and Messenger with voice integration to come later. Google Voice would not be integrated at launch. There would be a desktop app, a Chrome app, an Android app, and a, whatever this means, first-class iOS experience. Notifications would be synced as well. So if you get notifications on every single device, once you check on your desktop, every other notification goes away, because that makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't that work? And then also messages will include more text, more than 800 emoji options. Sarah, I'm going to ask you first, are you excited for all the kittens? Because when I saw the screenshots, I saw pictures of cats in the emojis. Over 800 of these.
Yes, in a word, yes I am. I love this idea. This sounds a lot like what Messages or iMessage, depending on what device you're on, if you use Apple's crap. Yeah, gosh, don't even get me started. But no, I love the idea if you can get a message on a variety of devices, but if you check it somewhere, then it disappears in other places, so you don't have all of this, a bunch of messages that you've already seen in too many places. I don't know, this sounds good. I do a lot of chatting. I welcome it, certainly on the iOS experience. I don't know what first-class iOS means, maybe better than what Apple can make as a native alternative.
That's a big little dig at Apple.
Sounds kind of like what it means.
Lindsay, what do you make of this possible combination of all the messaging, this universe here?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Google has been pushing Google Plus, and the fact that this is going to integrate more into Google Plus sounds very Googly. It sounds very much like what they've been trying to do recently. And it's funny because at CNET, we were just recently sort of talking as a group about the various messaging platforms that we all use to communicate with each other all day long. A lot of us use Google Chat because we use Gmail, and a lot of us still don't think it's quite where we want it to be. It doesn't have all the functionality of some of the sort of, even some of the older school, Trillion-style shared chat programs. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. This is a good start, although I've never in my life used an animated or illustrated emoticon in Google Chat because maybe I'm the world's most boring person, but it's kind of hilarious. To me, it's like, okay, great, and they really want to make sure that they capture the 12-year-old.
Tom, are you nervous at all about Google Voice not being there at launch? At least in these reports, is Google Voice kind of going the Google Reader way?
I have absolutely no opinion about this whatsoever, to be frank. I already thought this is the way it worked. Whenever I get a G-Talk message at Gmail, it shows up in Google+. I guess what they're adding is the mobile aspect of it, so you can have an app messenger that also integrates. But yeah, I guess, sure, Google Voice would come to this. I assume that people who really use this across all platforms are going to be very excited for it.
Out of confusion, you have apathy. That's great. I'm actually very excited about this, because I was confused and I want all this stuff to work together, because I'm sick and tired of downloading 6 apps to do one thing.
Well, maybe you can explain to me what doesn't work together right now.
I don't think it's how you start Hangouts doesn't work in every single thing. Google Talk just added the ability to do Hangouts. Google Voice and Talk don't talk together. Google Docs Chat doesn't talk to Google Talk. So there's a whole bunch of them that don't work together right now.
I kind of don't want Google Docs Chat to talk to Google Talk. That seems like something that should be separate because it's specific to that doc. I get the other.
Silence is golden.
All right.
It seems like you should be able to leap out of that into Google Talk faster, though. I mean, if you want to be like, it's kind of like saying, let's take this email conversation to the phone. It's just going to be more efficient.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Let's finish up with some Foursquare news. They've got millions of dollars, Sarah. What are they going to do with them?
Yeah, $41 million. It's pretty much to invest in, I don't know if you call it a pivot for the company, but definitely a refocus in how the company can make money. Ayaz and I are still using Foursquare on a regular basis, but I don't know about a lot of other folks. I know in my Foursquare feed of where my friends are, it has really, really dwindled from, what was it, 2008 or 2009 when Foursquare launched, to much fanfare. People saying, it's going to be the next Twitter. And a lot of folks saying, yeah, Foursquare, nobody really wants to become mayor of a place anymore. Checking in that's old, that's over. The interesting thing is that Foursquare has merchants that it works with, so I might see a special if I search for a coffee shop, for example. The problem is that's somewhat buried, and Foursquare realizes they're just not making use of the merchant agreements that they can have. So this summer, they're going to let all of the merchants that Foursquare works with, and they've got, many merchants, rather than the the merchants that they have agreements with already to highlight search function and any merchant to be able to say, yes, I'm going to agree to pay Foursquare a little bit of money and have some sort of special that gets highlighted. What's interesting about this is that Stephen Rosenblatt, who's the Foursquare Chief Revenue Officer, says, for example, if I get sent an ad from a nearby coffee shop after I search for a latte on Foursquare, as far as the data that they have, between 3 and 5% of the time, I will click on the ad and visit the shop within 72 hours. So that's a really, really good percentage if you compare it to maybe ad clicking on websites in general. They also have, Foursquare has a ton of data, and that's not just within their own app, because over 40,000 other apps have built in Foursquare's platform into their app rather than build their own location databases. So this is Foursquare pretty much saying, we now have data collected from Path, from Vine, from Instagram. I mean, there are millions of users. So a new revenue sharing deal with Visa and MasterCard allows people to upload their credit card information to get discounts. This is Foursquare basically saying, we want to make money off of specials. I mean, you can almost think of it as a Groupon model that's just so much more geolocated and allows Foursquare to employ far, far fewer salespeople. I mean, thousands and thousands of salespeople fewer, because it's an algorithm that works pretty well based on our activity. This obviously still requires me to be checking in regularly, because that's where you're building the data for where if you search for that coffee shop, you see that a friend has checked in, and that's all built in. Does this make sense for Foursquare, you think?
I think so, especially about that point you mentioned, how Foursquare is being used in so many other different applications. It's not that I go to Foursquare necessarily to check in, I want to see the specials or explore things. I'm using something like Untapped, so I can log the beers I'm drinking. And then there's a little Foursquare integration. I'm doing on Path, I can do that Foursquare integration. And that'll take me either to the app, or I'll actually start looking at the application more. It keeps it in my mind anyway, to actually click that Foursquare icon. So I think as long as they're everywhere, and that they're the location database for a lot of these other applications, you do remember them, they still have a presence. You're not thinking about GoWallet when Facebook bought them. You're not thinking about these other competing services. I don't think you think of check-in services, you think anything but Foursquare at this point, including even Facebook's own check-in system. So I think once they have this in place, once they keep these partnerships in place, I think they're going to still be doing quite well, because they're pretty much the biggest game in the market.
Lindsay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think that they have to change people's behavior a little bit, right? And so this might be a good opportunity to get people to check in because they want to find out if there are any current deals, right? Rather than check in because they're showing off to their friends, which that seems to be over, more or less. So you're just kind of like, okay, I'm at Starbucks, and wait, before I walk in the door, I'm just going to check, see what's going on at Starbucks. And that can be pretty compelling, I think, even beyond the sort of coffee shop model. If you get to big box merchandisers, or instead of having to go through a circular or get coupons in the mail or even an email, you just find out whether there's something going on when you walk in the door. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Tom, what do you think? I mean, this to me sounds like, Foursquare and Yelp have already been competitors and they have a lot of the same feature sets, but more and more I do go to Foursquare, especially if I'm in an unfamiliar city or something, to just kind of see what's around. Do you think that having more specials for places that I've never been before, maybe haven't been in a while, is going to help? Is going to help me make that sale and give Foursquare a little bit more coin?
It can't hurt. The other thing I would do is I would encourage the stores to put up signage, because frankly I see these specials a lot of times and I just don't use them, because I'm like, these people aren't going to know what this is. This restaurant doesn't show any sign that they know Foursquare. And I've had that conversation with people before. I'm like, do you honor this? Just half the time they're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. And a lot of times I get people like, oh, let me check with my manager. I don't really know what that is. So I think there needs to be a little push from the other side to make this work.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the randoms. This coming from a woman in Georgia who was turning the corner and saw something flying at her. It struck her bumper. She pulled over and found an iPad. Free iPad.
How does that happen?
They used a hammer to dislodge it, and the iPad not only survived, but still contained enough juice and operational capability for them to find the owner's name and telephone number. I guess the guy had left it on top of his car when he drove away, and it just went flying out.
Into a bumper?
It lodged right in there, too.
How fast was it flying to do that?
Relative speed.
They show you how aerodynamic the shape of the iPad is.
It's really, really thin.
Yeah, it's really tiny. Next gen iPad. Razor thin. Cut through cars.
They should have kept it there. Just keep it there, right? Like, turn on the camera and drive around a little bit. See what there's something there for the car companies.
The camera's actually visible in there. It's on the bottom, but you could actually do it, I guess. And that means the dock connector's on the top. You could probably rig this. I think Lindsay's onto something.
Opportunity lost. So sad.
An iPad on my toe once. I'm surprised I kept the toe now. All right, let's see what's on the calendar. Not much, Monster.
Not much. T-Mobile USA is going to start selling that iPhone tomorrow, April 12th, which is my half birthday.
Happy birthday.
Well, it's tomorrow.
That's what's tomorrow.
All right, let's see what's in good.
We got a message from Wes. He says, hey, TNT crew, I'm a cord cutter without the time to watch live TV, and I gave up torrenting years ago. If it's not on Netflix, Hulu Plus, or Amazon Prime, I don't watch. That said, if Aereo came to my area, I would absolutely return to watching shows from the major networks. While I don't represent most consumers, Aereo could be future-proofing for a market that is moving away from live TV. And in some viewing metrics from Aereo, and suddenly, the major networks are more capable of delivering high-quality content to a large audience. Their need to control distribution is throwing away a huge opportunity. Thanks, guys.
I don't think it is. I understand why the broadcast networks are afraid of Aereo, and it's simply because right now they make the majority of their money from cable, from going after retransmission fees. They make money off of advertising, granted, but they don't. If they went to an 100% over-the-air broadcast model, that would not end up well for them. So I think I get why they want to resist this change, because they want to be in charge of that transition. They want to come out with their own over-the-internet models, and they want to control the prices. Whether they should be fighting that out in court or not, well, that's what you do. You see if you can win in court. What I don't want them to do is change the laws of the country to favor a business model. But I do think it's easy to go like, yeah, but they make money over the air. It's been a long time since broadcast networks were able to fund their entire operation from the advertising. Those fees make up a larger and larger amount of the budget all the time. All right, well, that is it for this episode of Tech News Today. Lindsay Turrentine, thank you so much for joining us. What's happening over there at CNET.com?
Oh, it's a beautiful day here. We're talking a lot of T-Mobile.
promoting them, then what does Apple's store rankings really mean? So it's kind of a gaming the system fear. Apple also did something like this. It rejected a bunch of apps back in 2011 that were going to incentivize app installs, and possibly, John says he doesn't know this for a fact, but possibly this could just be screwing with Apple's integration of Chomp, or whatever that integration may be down the road. That's the app search company that Apple itself acquired last year. So, it's one of these things where this always gets developers, I think, confused, angry, sure, but even a little bit more confused, like, well, why'd you point the finger at us? What's the deal? But does this seem like the beginning of the end for app discovery apps? Because we've been hearing for a while that Apple's not happy with them.
Yeah, well, my understanding, that's been part of the terms of service or the the guidelines for a long, long time, and it's interesting that any of these got through as they were. I think what we also see here, and not having a lot of background on who it is that's actually doing the reviews of the apps. Is there a team at Apple that does this? Is this farmed out to subcontracting agencies? What is the quality control that is done on the app approval process itself? Because I think what we're seeing is different people that are in that chain of authority somewhere making slightly different decisions based on how deep they're looking at the apps that they're supposed to be approving. Consistency can be a bugaboo when two different people are looking or not looking deeply enough at what an app is doing. And maybe somebody's rubber stamping stuff, and then 2 months down the line, somebody else notices that that's an egregious outrage. It violates all of our terms. We got to pull it. Well, that causes really bad PR for them. But when it comes down to it, yeah, obviously all of these app developers, you're going to have those few that are going to push the boundaries as much as they can. I think many of them have discovered every now and then you can get something through and ride that for a while. But sooner or later, you may get found out, and don't feign surprise or disappointment. You got away with it.
Well, it's kind of sounds similar to what happened with Saga number 12. That's the app that's made by Brian K. Vaughan, the comic that's not going to be allowed through Comixology or other third-party apps on iOS. Now, Vaughan says, this is his direct quote, because of 2 postage-stamp-sized images of gay sex, Apple is banning Tomorrow's Saga 12 from being sold through any iOS apps. This is a drag, especially because our book has featured what I would consider much more graphic imagery in the past. But there you go. So this is, again, it's sort of like, is this just something that somebody noticed and went, oh, wait, no, we can't have this in here. This is not what Apple's all about. Or is this the beginning of some sort of tide turning to be censoring content that Apple feels for whatever reason is inappropriate?
Well, I'm going to question this a little bit, and whether there's a apples and oranges, pardon the pun, difference here. Because what we're looking at with Comixology is it's not an app recommendation service. My understanding is the way that's working. Correct me if I'm wrong. Comixology, is a reader and purchasing app for getting digital versions of comics. And my understanding of the way they work is that instead of being like a feed reader where the new information on what's for sale pops in when you refresh it or open it every day, is they're actually updating the app every month with what's new and for sale. And so it's the new version. Is it every week? Okay. Well, so first of all, they're going through the app approval process on a weekly basis, and then secondarily, they ran into something in this version that somebody flagged. Now, if you look at the information for Comixology, though, it's very clear that it is a NC-17 rated app. You have to, and it says may contain sex and graphic nudity and so on and so forth. So that seems a little bit weird. And then you can go off on the arguments that, well, you're going to be able to get the book through the iBook store too. I think what we're really seeing here is the problems that Apple has set up for itself with how they curate apps versus how they don't curate other content that's available on their other apps. And so at some point, something's going to have to change.
Yeah, Apple has said we don't censor the things that are in the bookstore. We censor apps, but Comixology is essentially a bookstore. So maybe Apple should kick it out because it's a competing service. I don't know.
Yeah, does the Amazon Kindle app? What books can you buy for the Amazon Kindle app? Or can you buy books through the Amazon Kindle app?
Yeah, no, you can't, because Amazon doesn't want to give a cut to Apple.
Right.
So what you can do with Comixology is you can buy the comic on the web or on your Android app, and it will sync over, and you can get it in the iOS app. It's crazy. We got to move along. Let's talk a little bit about Boxy Eye, as they have taken TV out of their name. Why is that?
The Boxy TV device, that's the cloud-based DVR, is now called Boxy Cloud DVR. It's a pretty good name there. The $100 device lets you watch live TV and record to Boxy servers, assuming you have a fast enough connection, and you're in one of the 8 service areas: Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, LA, New York City, Philadelphia, and DC. If you want to record to Boxy servers, Boxy also added a free tier. You get 5 hours of DVR playback. Recordings expire in 90 days, and you can only watch recordings on your television. There's still a pay service that they have, which gives you unlimited playback. Recordings don't expire, and you can watch them on pretty much any device. That's a $10 per month fee that they had previously. Ken, do you think this free tier is going to get people interested in picking up this DVR?
Maybe. I don't know. That 5 hours, that seems awfully limiting, but it is a good, try it first kind of deal. But you have to buy the box first anyway, right?
Yes, you got to pay $100 for the box outright.
Yeah, so why have a free tier that's that limiting? I don't think that makes sense. I don't think anyone's going to use that. I think, maybe they'll start, until they get around to putting their credit card in to sign up for the other thing, maybe they'll use that, but 5 hours is nothing on a weekly basis, so that doesn't make sense.
Tom, you're actually in one of the service areas. You're in LA. Would you be interested in getting something like this, considering now there is a free tier? And to me, it just seems like one of those get you in the door kind of thing. You see it's convenient, you keep going.
It's a marketing issue, right? Because the cool thing about Boxy is that it has all of these video services, like a Roku, like something else that you get, like an Apple TV, and they have the cloud DVR. So taking TV out of the name sounds like maybe a mistake because of the way Ken's looking at it and going, oh, it's DVR, but I only get 5 hours free when I buy it. I want more than that. And they should be saying, like, hey, it's Boxy TV, but now we're giving you free DVR access, and if you pay, you get even more DVR access.
I don't think 5 hours a week is that.
5 hours a month.
5 hours a month.
Oh, 5 hours a month.
No,
Unfortunately, I was like, 5 hours a week. You guys are watching a little too much TV. I guess, it's a getting you in the door type of a thing. You've got the $100 device, so you pay that one-time fee, and then if I'm trying to think of, would I pay $100 to have this service for, I don't know, a couple of years where I at least get to record 5, 1-hour shows each month that for whatever reason I can't get through my other on-demand services? I don't know. It might still be worth it to me.
On the Boxy side, I think they did an intelligent thing. They compared cable TiVo and Boxy DVR, saying you'll never run out of space. Unlike a TiVo where you buy the hardware and you have to pay something like $15 a month for guide data, or you pay a large lifetime fee for that. So I think if that's the way they position it, $100 doesn't seem that expensive, especially since the Boxy TV or the Cloud DVR still has internet streaming services like Netflix. So you might not be recording absolutely everything because you're watching something like House of Cards on Netflix. So if they didn't just call it Cloud DVR, Cloud TV, DVR plus streaming, whatever it is, I don't know if the branding is going to cause an issue, but I think it's definitely a smart marketing thing, because when I saw this service, I thought it was cool, but at a $10 a month price, I was like, I don't know if I even want to look at this. $100, there's so many different set-top boxes at that price range.
Yeah, I think it's the branding, because, it confused me. I wasn't thinking this was just a Boxy box. I thought this was a new product. Boxy boxes are wonderful, and this is creating sort of a hybrid cord cutter device, if you think about it. And that may make sense for some people, but let's make sure the branding is clear that you're getting the equivalent of a Roku or one of those other boxes, plus this new potential service. Yeah, maybe that's possible.
This isn't the Boxy box. That's the thing discontinued. This is the Boxy TV rebranded, which was see how clear it is, because they keep calling everything Boxy.
It's almost like it's the company's name. Well, meanwhile, one of the things that makes Boxy TV work is you can get over-the-air broadcast with a dongle, but maybe not for too much longer, huh, Sarah?
Yeah, yesterday we talked about how Chase Carey, who's the COO of News Corp, had said, listen, Fox is not afraid to change to a subscription model if we can't get paid for the TV content we produce. And this is in retaliation to the court decision that said Aereo, the internet TV company, can stream broadcast TV without paying retransmission fees. Well, yesterday I said, Fox, they're just mad. Univision and CBS are kind of getting on board as well. Les Moonves, which is the CBS CEO, told the New York Times he wholeheartedly supported what Chase said, and that CBS has held talks with cable operators about taking its signal off the air. Of course, CBS is right now in litigation with some other networks, with Dish Network, over ad-skipping technology. So in general, CBS is like, listen, we need to get paid. Come on now, let's put the brakes on all this alternative technology. Also said that New York and Connecticut is really the only issue right now, because that's Aereo only operates in New York. Although Aereo says we plan to expand to other markets as soon as possible. So it's kind of like, well, wherever Aereo is offered is where we would go sub-model only, although that sounds really complicated. Meanwhile, Univision is also threatening to pull their signal, although the company said in a statement that going cable only, meaning you got to pay if you want any of this content, would really have a big impact on its viewership, because Hispanics watch TV through an antenna at twice the rate of the average viewer, according to Univision. They released a statement that said so. So it's kind of like, well, if they really wanted to do this, then that could potentially really cut off a lot of their happy customers, I guess, happy non-paying customers. Meanwhile, Steve Pruitt, the chairman of the Fox Affiliate Board of Governors, told the AP he represents over 200 stations that are able to provide Fox content, and they are on board. They're on board with the threat to transition to pay TV if Aereo keeps reselling Fox's signal without paying for rights. That's the way that they sort of spin it. He says, this is what we can do. As a TV station, you can send out two signals. You can send one to cable and satellite companies, and another one to those free airwaves people. Premium Fox programs for paying customers could go to the cable folks, and then the free-to-air broadcast could be lesser quality, maybe certain shows are blacked out, that sort of thing. So this really potentially, if Aereo continues to be able to operate and the networks are not simply crying wolf here, it could be potentially really messy for the way that many of us are consuming programming on networks. Ken, what do you think is the next step here?
I don't know, this is crazy. It's funny in a way, because what Aereo is doing is it's like the analog loophole, where you could always play something and then pass it out through your microphone, out your out jack, and pull it back in and record it, so you can copy anything that you're listening to. Well, that's what Aereo is doing with free broadcast television. All right, so if these companies are getting frustrated by that, seeing a potential for losing money. All right, if you go subscription Fox, are we going to not see advertising anymore? Because your whole model was originally built on being an over-the-air broadcaster, so that everybody could get your signal and see everything on your channel for free, and you got paid because people were advertising on you. All right, if I'm going to pay $5 a month to get your channel, get rid of the ads. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it's not happening now. We're paying for cable and satellite, and these channels are carried on those. I'm assuming those channels are getting paid for doing that by the cable providers, but we're still seeing all the same ads that the broadcast over-the-air folks get. So this is, once again, technology outpacing the business models, and it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Tom, what do you think? I mean, when it's just Fox, that's one thing, but when it's Fox and CBS and Univision and who knows who's next, I mean, is this something that's going to influence how the lawmakers treat Aereo?
Yeah, I haven't changed my opinion since yesterday. This is all a gambit that in case they lose their court case to Aereo, which, because they're doing this, makes me think they are going to lose their court case to Aereo, they can go to Congress with a bunch of letters from angry customers afraid they're going to lose over the air and say you need to pass legislation making something like Aereo illegal. It is interesting to me that the Fox local affiliates, now these are the ones that are owned by Fox, there's about 200 of them, have said what they would do is they would keep an over-the-air channel, but it would have different programming than the one that you would get on cable. So if you're a cable subscriber, you would get the channel you have now. If you had an over-the-air version, you would still maybe get your local news and stuff, but you wouldn't get the same quality of programming. It sounds to me like they're talking about pulling prime time programming. That way they don't go afoul of their license with the FCC, which says if you want to broadcast over the air, you want to keep your broadcast license, you have to keep a public service element. So you just keep doing some local news and public affairs programs.
I wonder if this is yet another chink in the armor or step down the road towards a la carte cable, television services. Because if they do this, then, maybe there's my opportunity. I get satellite. I don't want Fox, so I don't want to pay for it. So, okay, take it off my channel lineup.
We can dream, can't we? As I said yesterday, Fox, CBS wants to do it, Univision wants to do it. Just go straight to the internet. Sell it straight to people. They'll actually buy it. All of them. Doesn't matter which one. Now maybe CBS is kind of an older demo, but I bet even people do that. Let's talk about the Consumerist magazine ranking EA the worst company in America for the second straight year based on your votes. This is the Consumerist March tournament for worst company in America. EA beat Bank of America in the finals. On their way to the Final Four, by the way, they beat no less than AT&T, InBev, the makers of watery beer, and Facebook. So this was no small task for EA. They're the only one to repeat. Comcast, AIG, BP, Halliburton, the RIAA, and Countrywide all previous champions, never repeated as champ. Of course, EA says, like, this is ridiculous. How are we more evil than companies that spill oil into the ocean? Yeah, we understand last year Mass Effect 3 people didn't like the ending. We know SimCity had server issues. The EA COO, Peter Moore, actually took to a blog earlier this week knowing that they were going to win this and tried to make a defense saying, yeah, EA is the tallest tree, and the tallest tree catches the most wind. But it's because they're so successful that they get all this flack. The consumerist asked this question. I want to ask this of you guys too. When we live in an era marked by massive oil spills, faulty foreclosures by bad banks, and rapid consolidation in the airline and telecom industry, what does it say about EA's business practices that so many people have, for the second year in a row, come out to hand it the title of worst company in America? Ken, what do you think?
I think this says that everybody who's voting is online, and so it's in our brain. It's for those of us that would actually go there and vote. I think we're all hyper aware of the dumb things that they've been doing over the last year, and I guess that noise was the biggest noise. And especially, I wonder if there are a lot of gamers gaming the system that are wanting to get EA into that spot. No, they're not the worst company in America. They just got a really bad high level PR problem right now.
And I think that's what it's all about. It's perception. Ayaz, what do you think?
I think I agree with Ken. It seems like a self-selecting kind of poll. You have people going to the consumerists, and so they're already kind of edgy about what companies are doing. You have online gaming being screwed up by EA. Fairly recent to this poll, so it's pretty close in people's minds. Now, all the world problems with the banking industry and all that stuff, for some reason, does not get people fired up because it's kind of this ethereal thing. If you had a giant pop-up message showing up like this on your face saying, hey, by the way, something's not working, or hey, the ocean is polluted when you try to go online, maybe you start getting annoyed at these companies a little bit more. But EA, unfortunately, because you can't connect to the servers, you're getting to see this thing constantly. You're being reminded, hey, by the way, EA sucks all the time. So I think it's that reminder and that audience together putting this poll together. And 77% said EA was the worst company, 22% said Bank of America.
And granted, there's a little selection bias here. You guys are right. But Sarah, they beat Facebook and AT&T. No small potatoes there.
Yeah, well, people get really mad about, game franchises that they love getting screwed up, right? I mean, this is all a little bit silly to me. EA is not the worst company in America. There's just no way that's true. But I understand that they have been afoul of public favor for a while now. So yeah, I think Ken really hit the nail on the head when he said, these are internet polls, right? A lot of people who might have answered this question, on the street or in various cities or towns, might respond differently. It all kind of depends on what you spend a lot of your time and effort on.
Yeah, it's far from scientific, but I think it does point out that EA has a really bad perception problem. People continue to buy their games in large numbers. In fact, that's one of the things. And the guy Peter Moore said, some people don't like us because we allow gay and lesbian characters.